Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Two Spot Monkeys Live. Joining us here for episode 120. I am Tom, amped up and ready to go. Joined as always by Jim. Jim, what's up, man? It's good to be with you.
It is good to be with you, Tom. Tom, I can't imagine why you might wake up on a Friday morning, September 8th. We'll just, in case anybody, those who are not obviously watching live, we do have one or two of those. But anybody listening later, I can't imagine why on Friday, September 8th, you might wake up amped and excited about, I don't know, the next few months, perhaps.
More than that, but yes.
Was last night a good night for you, Tom?
Last night was amazing. I believed, I hoped, I realized.
Yeah, absolutely, you did, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about that towards the latter part of our show. This is our show where we're going to make our NFL picks as well, as we have traditionally here on Two Spot Monkeys. But before we get to NFL picks, and we'll have plenty to say about those, I'm sure. It'll be kind of the tale of two shows today. We'll of course talk wrestling here at the outset, and then we'll wrap up with our NFL chatter. We turned into an NFL podcast for 1 week a year at least. Although, let's be honest, we're at least going to comment on the season throughout it, I'm sure, in our fantasy football teams. And by the way, you and I talked earlier this week. I am apparently this year the biggest Tua Tagovailoa fan on the planet. I have 6 fantasy teams, and he is my quarterback on 5. So, Tua for MVP. More on that later. But we've had 3 head-to-head shows since we were with you 2 weeks ago, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. So much wrestling over the last couple of weeks. 3 shows that we picked, and those were All In, of course, back in London, Payback, and then All Out last weekend. And if I have my records right, Tom, at All In, I kind of cleaned your clock on that one pretty good. All In, I was 9-2, and you were 6-5 on that show. So we had 3 differences, and I swept those, which is rare actually to have that big of a difference for us. So that was fun for me. I'm not sure how you were feeling. And we'll talk about each of these shows here in a second. At Payback, I was 5-1, and you were 4-2, so extended the lead a little bit more there. And then All Out went the other direction, though. I was 4-5. I did not do well with All Out, and you were 5-4. Neither of us really killing it. Tony zigging when we zagged or something on our picks there. So that is where we landed, and then that brings us to a total right now of I'm at 36-12, and Tom, you're 34-14. If I have those numbers right.
Spot on, Jim. You laid that out great, and those are all correct records. So you have a 2-match lead in our pick'ems. Still early in the game. We'll have one more pick'em this month, in the month of September, and then October, November, December. So yes, right. As disappointed as I was how my clock was cleaned thoroughly by you in the UK, I'm also not out of the water.
No, by no means. We have no mercy at this month, and then at the end of the month here, and then that same weekend, I believe, is Wrestle Dream. I think No Mercy is the last weekend.
It is, yeah.
So Wrestle Dream, and then we'll have Fastlane has already been announced, Full Gear has been announced, Survivor Series. I threw Final Battle on the list because that's coming. And there could be other things because, Tony Khan adding in Wrestle Dream makes you wonder, is there more coming from AEW as well in the pay-per-view world? And probably another NXT show, I would assume, before the end of the year as well. Another NXT premium live event. So yeah, lots of time for you to make up what is a very small 2-match lead. We know, much like with All In, we know that can swing in just one show. So depending on our picks. So Tom, out of those 3 shows, what did you see and what did you see live, if anything, of those 3?
Yep. So easy answer, nothing live. And the only thing I saw was Payback.
Okay. And I also, I take that back. I watched All In live. I watched All In. We had talked about reasoning behind that with my brother and that. So I did watch All In. I have not seen, outside of clips on YouTube and Facebook and places, I have not seen a minute of Payback or All Out. So we'll have our own reactions and comments about how those shows went, and All Out neither one of us saw. I'll be honest, and I they did okay on the buy rates, but laying out $50 2 weeks in a row just wasn't something I really wanted to do. Now, from all sounds, All Out was another banger, great show from everything I've read. But that's where I was at. So, and I never did the banners. There we go with that. Okay, head-to-head update. Here we are. For those watching on YouTube, first time I've ever done this. No, I'm kidding. So let's take them just chronologically, Tom. All in, having watched it live, first of all, the spectacle, right? I mean, it looked like WrestleMania basically, because it's a stadium show. You had, what was it, 91,003 people or something like that? Was that the right? Did I hit the right number?
81. You're about
81. Why do I,
10K higher. You're channeling 1987.
Right. Hulk Hogan, who slammed the 4,000-pound Andre the Giant in front of 4 million people at the Pontiac Silverdome. Why did I 91,000? 81,003. At least I had the 3 right, I guess. Which, just for a quick second, I have to say, like, AEW has been around like 4 years. And yes, it was their first time in the UK and all of that. They drew 81,000 paid 4 years in. Like, kudos. I'm sorry. Anybody who is, it's scalpers. Oh, it's just, hey, scalpers doesn't matter. They got paid. They bought tickets. Like, from a business side. And if you looked at that stadium, it looked every bit of 81,000 people. Like, it wasn't like, 81,000 tickets got sold and 3,000 people showed up. No, that stadium was packed. Sounds like there were some travel nightmares getting out of the stadium, which is very WrestleMania-esque. Kudos. I don't know what if I would have told you in 2019, Tom, that 4 years from then, AEW would have drawn 81,000 at a stadium show at Wembley. I mean, what would you have reacted had I said that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would have been something that I would have said, "Oh wow, that's impossible." But it doesn't minimize, or by any means, and I don't even know that minimize is the right term, like the impressive nature of that. And again, you always hear like Vince McMahon loves to compete, right? So like the fact now that AEW and Tony Khan has hit that number, even though Vince, I think, is definitely sunsetting, or he definitely should be sunsetting. We've broached that topic here on this podcast many times before. Something's got to be stirring in him if he's not talking to Nick Khan or Triple H or, I don't know, Bruce Pritchard or somebody. Like,
everybody.
to attempt to outdo that in some way. And how, where, when, again, who knows? And again, is that even possible for WWE right now? Their product is fantastic. AEW's product is fantastic. Again, and those statements may be heard and go, oh, wow, you really feel that way? I do. Like, I think they're both performing at some of the highest levels that we've seen in the last 3-4 years. And I think definitely from the dark times of WWE in like 19 and 20, and then it just AEW's continued growth. So all of those things, to me, are contributing factors. I had a moment, not to deviate, but I think this connects back to just the buzz or the popularity. I thought a few days ago, I think when I was watching Collision last Saturday before All Out. And I said, man, it's amazing that there are so many talented wrestlers that can truly make a viable second promotion. Because clearly that was clearly the case before. And maybe people say, oh, well, there was the Ring of Honors, there was the Impacts. Nothing was on the level of AEW. So the fact that we now have AEW as true viable competition to WWE, and it's not new, it's been competition for a while, and they continue to be competition. It's you and I get to win as fans, and others get to win as fans as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I just, not that I think Tony Khan will ever hear you and I talking about this, but like, just kudos to the company. And, obviously there's some other things, and we're going to talk about those here in a minute, but they drew 81,000 to a stadium show anywhere, but at Wembley, which, I know it's not the exact same Wembley that SummerSlam 92 was. It's sitting on the same spot. They demolished that stadium and built a new one. But just crazy, good for them. I know some of their shows here don't draw as well. But it's proof that if you make something seem special, it can be.
They drew more than the Notre Dame Navy game, which I believe was the day before. And I would argue that Notre Dame as a brand is far exceeding the popularity and of course the lineage of All Elite Wrestling. So the fact that they chose to run in Ireland, which clearly Notre Dame, Ireland, the Irish, of course, and maybe that was the biggest venue they could fill. AEW outdrew them by I think like 16 grand. So that's a testament right there.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. That's super, super cool. And now when you say the highest paid attendance, I know people bring up the WCW shows in North Korea. People were forced to go to those shows. Like, doesn't count. I even saw somebody trying to make the argument that, well, WWE drew 150,000 to WrestleMania because they had 75,000. I'm off on my numbers, but they had the 2 nights here in SoFi. It wasn't 75,000. I think it was like 60,000 each night, maybe. And so they had like 120. So they drew 120,000 paid to WrestleMania. And I'm like, nope, not how this works. Because had they done all in 2 nights in Wembley, they probably would have drawn 150, 160,000 between the 2 nights. So no, you don't get to count 2 nights as 1 night. We got to do apples to apples here. And so the highest paid attendance wrestling figure in history belongs to All Elite Wrestling, and that's pretty cool. And like you said, Triple H, along with Vince, along with Nick Khan, I won't be stunned within the next 12 months to hear WWE is running Wembley, and they will find a way to configure the seats where there will be more than 81,000 seats available. So I won't be stunned at all to see that, because they absolutely have that competitive fire. And you know what? Good on them. And if they can come up with something that can draw more, cool. And then Tony, ball will be back in your court. Let's see what you can do.
Well, they've already said they're coming back next year.
Yep, and they're going to be back next year. So, which brings the whole question of, can they draw 81,000 again? And what do they put together to do that? Which is a whole conversation we can have over the next 12 months. Let's just talk about the show real quick too. Just we'll kind of briefly run through it, because otherwise, with 3 pay-per-views and NFL picks, we might be here all day, and that won't work because I'll get fired. So, but All In started with 0 Hour. There were 2 matches on 0 Hour. Originally, were supposed to be just 1, but MJF and Adam Cole defeated Aussie Open to win the Ring of Honor tag titles. You and I both missed on that one. And they continue to reign as the Ring of Honor tag champs. So we'll talk about that. And then Hook defeated Jack Perry. And this is where the rails came off, apparently, backstage. Jack Perry, CM Punk have their thing. Let's save that for after. Let's just keep running through results, and we'll get to Punk and Perry. Real World title match, Punk defeats Joe in what, well, just spoiler alert, is his swan song in AEW, at least at this point, and probably forever, I would guess. Takeshita, Jay White, Juice Robinson over Omega, Page, and Ibushi. The AEW World Tag Title match, FTR retains over the Young Bucks. That's one of those that I correctly predicted. Stadium Stampede, crazy, just crazy. Eddie Kingston and the Best Friends and Penta defeated the Blackpool Combat Club, Santana and Ortiz. The women's world title match, Saraya, as we both predicted, did win the world title over Shida, Storm, and Britt Baker. The coffin match, Sting and Darby over Swerve and Christian Cage. Will Ospreay over Chris Jericho, and just a phenomenal match. The Trios title, the Acclaimed did win the Trios titles from the House of Black. And then, of course, the world title match, MJF over Adam Cole in what I've seen some people who've hated that match. I loved it. So I don't know. As you read through the results, aside from the head-to-head stuff, obviously I have a rough idea what your feeling was as you read those results. But just what did you think, Tom, as you read results and people's comments and things online? I'm curious from the side of someone who didn't see the show, how you were feeling about it.
Yeah, so it's hard to take this knowing what happens at All Out and knowing right. What led to All Out, so to put this in a bottle, if you will. I still think the thing I'm most challenged by are just the 2 title losses of Aussie Open and then House of Black, because I think Aussie Open had the chance, and we talked about that when we made our picks, to be really staple Ring of Honor tag team champions and really bring some prestige back to those titles. You think of the J. Mark Briscoe, think of FTR, think of the Young Bucks, but lesser of the Young Bucks. So that again, I appreciate MJF and Cole as the champs, and I'm going to be interested to see where this goes. But I feel like their story, their dynamic, as over as it is, and as cool as it's been emerging over the summer, it doesn't need the tag team titles. So I guess maybe like just the traditionalist in me of wanting strong champions makes me feel that way about Aussie Open losing. Same thing about House of Black. I felt like the House of Black had been and they were actually the most dominant trios champions. To take the titles from them, they never really had a story. They tried the house rules matches, which were inconsistently delivered. I think it gave this group like some real teeth to do things. And then it never really got off the ground. So there was bits and pieces and small chunks. I love the Acclaimed. I love the act. I love Max Bowens. I love Anthony Caster. Max Caster, Anthony Bowens.
I was like, wait, that didn't sound right.
And Billy Gunn is a fun part of the act as well. Do they need the trios titles? Give the Acclaim the Ring of Honor tag team titles, or put them in a feud with Aussie Open, right? That's what again, I'm spitballing. So those were the two big things that stuck out the most for me. Outside of, again, like I can never peg the Blackpool Combat Club booking. When I think they're going to win, they lose. When I think they're going to lose, they win.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that again when we get to All Out for a minute for me, because I feel like I have the same problem. Although I blind squirrel found a nut here on All In, and I got it right. And the Ring of Honor thing for me, the Ring of Honor tag title thing, when Ring of Honor got its TV show, and for those who aren't watching on YouTube, I'm giving air quotes. I expected there to be more separation, and there was for most of the has been. I don't know that I needed MJF and Adam Cole winning the Ring of Honor tag team titles, because let's be honest, I'll be stunned if they're on a Ring of Honor on Honor Club taping, ever defending those titles. And it just kind of maybe reinforced like AEW stars are bigger than ROH stars. And I don't know that you have to do that. I get that ROH is kind of the developmental brand for AEW, but you keep saying you don't want to present it that way. But then don't do that. Don't have when AEW stars challenge for Ring of Honor titles, they win them. That was the piece. And everything that you said about Aussie Open could have really brought some stability to those Ring of Honor tag titles. And I kind of half expected, honestly, again, through some sort of shenanigans on All Out, maybe there was going to be the title change. I don't know. I'm probably going to pick against MJF and Adam Cole every time they defend the tag titles from here on out. And at some point I'm going to be right. But for that reason, because I think you can keep telling the story without them being the Ring of Honor tag champs, and move those belts and then let those belts be their own story for somebody else. So I'm with you on that. I mean, it was a big pop the minute it was the opening match, that it was the very first match, and I knew that Hook and Perry was still coming on 0 Hour. I was like, yeah, we're probably wrong on this one. They're probably winning the titles, because I just couldn't see Aussie Open, even through Hook or Crook, winning the first match in front of that crowd. I thought they would have Hook win the FTW title first, then do the Ring of Honor title match, create some sort of tension to build right into, hey, if you haven't ordered yet, order the pay-per-view. You got to see how this turns out. And they went a different route. The minute they opened with that, I was like, yep, Tom and I are wrong on this one. That being said, it was fun. Aussie Open looked really good in the match. Certainly Aussie Open rubbing shoulders with Adam Cole and MJF is not a terrible thing for them, even if in a losing effort. So that was good. Totally echo too, even though I picked the acclaimed, I believe I said 2 weeks ago, I wanted to be wrong on that as far as just my heart and what I wanted to see happen. For all the same reasons you said about the House of Black. I will say Buddy Matthews bringing out the lantern and setting it in front of them, and them kind of bowing their head to Bray's lantern was very cool. just a really cool kind of subtle tribute for Bray. And then immediately the phones went up, the Fireflies came out. I was like, okay, that was pretty cool. You know, it wasn't one of those, okay, everybody, we're going to cheer for Bray Wyatt now kind of things where it's overt. It was just subtle. Buddy Matthews was a friend of Bray's. I assume Aleister Black back then, Malachi Black, you know, and he were friends or cross paths. I don't know if Brody King ever met him or not, but I just thought that was cool. Yeah, and now the Acclaimed have Pink Tag Trios titles, so I kind of feel like, yeah, I'm probably going to be hanging on to those for a little bit because you probably didn't spend all that money on those belts for them to lose them in 2 weeks. So I like the Acclaimed, but yeah, they didn't need this now. So could have seen something different. I'm just trying to think through, and we'll get to Punk in a little bit.
What was the flow of the show like? Again, from 0 hour till the end of the pay-per-view, we were talking, I think, roughly 4.5, 5 hours.
5 hours.
Okay. How? I mean, again, middle of the day is different than starting at 6 p.m., 7 p.m. at night, depending on your time zone. Just wondering how that flow went, how you felt stamina wise, being invested on a show that long.
Still hard to stay with it for 5 hours, even though everything they lined the show up as far as like layout, what went where, pretty well. Ospreay Jericho was a war and a battle. So having the trios title match after that, which after having not said anything about it being an open rules or house rules match, then right before the bell rings, they say, and the rule that the Acclaimed has picked for the house rules is no DQ, anything goes, some variation on that. And I was like, oh, that's right, house rules. Like, because again, as you said, it had been so inconsistently applied. It allowed him to use plunder and, added some gaga to the match, which was good. But I thought that was a good break match between the high drama of Ospreay and Jericho and then what would be the high drama of MJF and Adam Cole. So the flow was good. But again, I just think, and look, it's not going to change, right? But an hour of 0 hour or the buy-in, whatever you call it, depending on the show, and then 4 hours of a pay-per-view, it's just a lot. It's just a lot. And when your main event, obviously, is the biggest thing you've built, and I'm just tired by the time I'm watching it, and I'm a little bit tired of watching wrestling as much as I love wrestling. It feels like WrestleMania weekend all in one day, a little bit, where, like WrestleMania weekend, I take a day off work, I sit here and I watch, 2 or 3 shows a day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Used to do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It almost feels like that all in one day, if that makes sense. Because there's no break. Like, at least when I'm doing that WrestleMania weekend, I can watch a show, go get something to eat, do something else for an hour, and then come back and watch another show. And then, so it's just that feeling of AEW pay-per-views. They're just long. But they deliver, which is the good part, So if they were 5 hours long and just bored the snot out of me, I wouldn't spend the money. But so I will say they always deliver. So middle of the day, I guess, was a little easier in that I wasn't like falling asleep tired, but I was just weary by the end of it. Let's move into Payback real quick then. And again, we'll get to the CM Punk stuff. Payback had 6 matches on it. Steel cage match. That's funny. So I'm going through our fantasy wrestling league scores, and I just have steel cage match. I didn't put in Becky Lynch. I just put in parentheses Devsop +5. So that's fun. Becky Lynch over Trish Stratus. At least I got the points right, I guess. It was in the steel cage, and Zoe Stark turning on Trish after that match. What turned into a special referee match, LA Knight over The Miz. I don't know that really affected the outcome in any way, shape, or form on that match, but John Cena became the ref in that one, as he's back here for a little while because of the writers and actors strike. So he can't do any acting work right now. So he's back to WWE for a little bit, which is good for them. U.S. title match, Rey Mysterio defended over Austin Theory. That was, I believe, our one difference that we had on Payback. I had Mysterio, you had Theory. The tag title street fight, the Judgment Day wins the tag titles, Damian Priest and Finn Balor over Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn to win those belts. The women's world title match, Rhea Ripley over Raquel, and the world heavyweight title match, Seth Rollins over Shinsuke. No Money in the Bank cash in there, although I kind of thought it might happen, to be honest with you. I was a little surprised when I read it didn't. happen there. So it hasn't happened yet. So Tom, you saw Payback. So curious of your live feelings on that.
Yeah.
Or
So
not live, but
yeah, nope. I watched it spoiler free. I feel like I watched it combination of Sunday and Monday. The last week's a blur. Whenever there's a holiday weekend and whenever there's just a lot going on, as I saw someone yesterday post on their social media, they're like, "What day is it?" Just because coming off of a holiday, if you go back to work or if you have a long weekend, it can all blur and blend together. It was a solid show. I watched the majority of it with intent. I watched some of it while I was doing other things, which, again, I know I don't enjoy wrestling nearly as much or get the whole gist of it when I do the latter. I will say this: Trish and Becky was unbelievably brutal and physical. Very good, a really great opener. I was surprised it was the opener, but it definitely solidified its spot. You mentioned Zoe starts turning on Trish. It really was Trish turning on Zoe and Zoe like standing her ground. But then Zoe still feels like a heel coming into Monday because she and Shayna had a thing. But it looks like they might become allies. I don't know. We'll see. If this is Trish's swan song, which it should be because she's a Hall of Famer already, perfect. Makes a lot of sense. The street fight, the Steel City street fight for the tag titles, probably the best match on the show. If you haven't seen it, it's probably the one thing that you should go out of your way to see. The main event, Seth and Shinsuke, really good, and that issue doesn't appear to be over based on what happened on Monday. So, yeah, not a lot to say about Payback. Again, I know we're going to get to it, but like the major news of Saturday night was not Payback. It was the fallout from All In and preceding to All Out.
Brawlin. Anyways. I at one point had intended to stay spoiler free and try to catch this show on either Sunday or Monday. And then I think I was scrolling Facebook and I saw like the tag title change and I saw maybe Zoe and Trish had broke. And so I was like, okay, I've already spoiled most of the important things. I might as well just read the results and, whatever. I had a lot of good intentions last weekend of seeing something because between these two shows, you also had Wrestling Revolver had a show that sounded really fun to me in Iowa. I didn't go because I had a trivia booking the night before. GCW had a couple of shows actually in Chicago as well. So there was a ton of wrestling last weekend, and I didn't really watch much of any of it. I don't even know if I ever finished Collision last week, to be honest with you. I don't think I did. I don't think I ever finished Dax and Jay White. So, it just sometimes that doesn't pan out the way you think it will. In fact, no, I know I didn't because we hung a screen door and that took all of Monday. But anyways, this isn't a home improvement podcast. That could be a whole other story. Still not done. But yeah, so it looked like a show that had I watched it, I probably wouldn't have been upset that I watched it. But it also looked like a show that, having not seen it outside of that tag title match, and I would like to go back and see that at some point. I've got Peacock. I can do that. I don't feel like necessarily I have to go back and see anything except maybe that tag title match, which did sound super fun. In the clips that I saw online and a little bit, I caught a little bit of Raw on Monday and saw some of the highlights. Looked really fun. So, well, then let's go to All Out. They added the over the budget battle royal to 0 Hour. Oh, yes.
Before we jump to All Out, I know we're going to talk about this as a separate kind of banner or topic, but I think it's appropriate to say, so Saturday night,
yes,
as Collision is starting or prior to Collision starting, the news broke. It opens with a cold open and you've got Tony Khan, which again, if I'm not mistaken, Collision and Payback started identically at the same time. Or within an hour of one another. But Tony Khan opens that show and he announces that he has terminated with cause Phillip Brooks, otherwise known as CM Punk. And we'll get into that. But that was the news that I think dominated the wrestling X sphere. I was going to call it the Twitter sphere, but it's no longer Twitter. And just whatever the world of online
in the address bar, so.
Whatever the online wrestling community was, that was the scuttlebutt because CM Punk finally, yeah, maybe finally probably the right term. Finally saw his final day in AEW come to fruition. So, I wonder if that led to one of the matches we'll talk about happening at All Out, because I wonder if the person who faced Ricky Starks was intended to be CM Punk originally. I don't know.
It was.
Okay.
It was 100%. It was. So yes, you're dead on your feeling there. So the over the budget battle royal, a throwback to the original All In, which was kind of fun. I thought that they brought that name back. Adam Page wins that battle royal amongst like everybody else on the roster who wasn't on the show, basically. And that's not totally true, but and then Sky Blue, Willow Nightingale, and Hikaru Shida over Athena, Mercedes Martinez, and Diamante, also on 0 Hour. And then the trios title match was also on 0 Hour. The Acclaim defend over the Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, who the heck cares, trio. Although the fun side note to that was Dennis Rodman being in the Acclaim's corner, which that's just a pairing that makes sense and doesn't make sense all at the same time. Like, you just are like, okay, all right, that's what we're doing. They were in Chicago. I get it, and Rodman, obviously a huge wrestling fan, had been involved in a number of things. So that was kind of fun, I guess, in that regard. Then you get to the show proper, and they open with the ROH World Tag Title match. MJF and Adam Cole defend over John Silver and Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order. I was a little surprised. I picked up John Silver, spoiler, partially because I had seen that they won the Battle Royal, and I wanted the 10 points in our Fantasy Wrestling League, and I got them. But there was a little bit of me that wondered if, again, through hook or crook, maybe the Dark Order were going to win them and bring some stability to the Ring of Honor tag titles. I really want that, so I just keep trying to speaking it into existence, I guess. But alas, it didn't happen. Interestingly, on their way,
you didn't learn your lesson with RK Bro.
Right. How many times did I predict they were going to break up? And they never broke up. MJF and Adam Cole are going to be the Ring of Honor tag titles forever now, tag champs forever, because I just keep waiting for it. Interestingly, as they leave the ring, MJF is headed back up the ramp, and Samoa Joe comes out for his match, and they have a really cool callback to 2016 when Joe was the NXT champ. MJF was a security guard, and as Samoa Joe walked by MJF, he gave him a shove. Fast forward 7 years, they're walking by each other on the ramp at AEW. Samoa Joe gives him a shove, and MJF and Samoa Joe end up in a kind of a pull apart, which then I think was followed up on Dynamite. I haven't seen all of Dynamite, but I've read a couple of things. A couple of good one-liners, it sounds like, came out of that. And hey, sign me up for MJF Samoa Joe. That sounds fun. I like that. So I'm good with that. Samoa Joe, though, defends the Ring of Honor World TV title on an AEW pay-per-view. Why do we open with 2 Ring of Honor title matches?
So let's call a timeout right there. AEW, if they're going to continue to do All In, which they will, All Out, sorry. They're going to do All In as well, I'm sure. But we're talking about All Out. They're going to continue to do All Out. They have to do something to say we're honoring Ring of Honor every year because of Ring of Honor-esque being behind the original All In. Even though it's All Out. Otherwise, why are we getting Samoa Joe? Well, that could be the case too, right? But why are we getting Samoa Joe, Shane Taylor for the TV title? What else did we get? We got another Ring of Honor title defense here.
The tag titles.
The tag titles. Yeah. Why are we getting Ring of Honor championship defenses?
And honestly, the Claudio Wheeler Kingston Shibata match was built around the Ring of Honor tag title and the Pure title, or the Ring of Honor World title, and the Pure title. Yep. So that was also Ring of Honor centered. I'm with you, Tom. I think All In is the perfect place to do that. A, because Ring of Honor owned the name All In. B, All In, like, get an NJPW, get Zack Sabre Jr. to defend the TV title on that show or something. So now it's All In. Everybody's All In, which was kind of the original concept, right? So you would have AEW things, you would have Ring of Honor things, you would have New Japan, and maybe even get Impact to come over and, have Alex Shelley defend his title or something, which he won't be by next year, the world champ, but, Josh Alexander or whoever's the champ. Maybe get Impact involved, or you get Rev Pro or something, do something. That makes sense at All In for me. And it also makes it seem like a super card kind of thing, wrestling, which makes sense in a stadium and all of that. So, yeah, you start with 2 Ring of Honor title matches on an AEW pay-per-view. It's just, they weren't doing that for a while, and now they went back to doing it at least this weekend. I'm like, don't. Just stop. Don't. Anyways, then we go to the TNT title match. So an AEW title finally appears on an AEW pay-per-view. And surprisingly to both you and I, Luchasaurus defends that title over Darby Allin. We both had Darby winning that title, and we were wrong. Miro over Powerhouse Hobbs, and what I've heard, from everything you read online was just exactly what you would think, two power guys just smacking the heck out of each other. There's now an AEW shirt that says meat because Excalibur used the slap and meat line a few times apparently during that match. So TBS title match, Chris Statlander over Ruby Soho, Claudio and Wheeler over Eddie Kingston and Katsuyori Shibata.
That was our one difference in the pick'em. I got that correct. You got that incorrect. So back to the whole, can you pick BCC?
You got it that time. I didn't get it this time. Right. Here's where I thought Kingston or Shibata getting a win and setting up a future Ring of Honor World title match would have made a lot of sense. They zigged when I thought they'd zag.
Jim, why would we forward Ring of Honor storylines on an AEW show?
I mean, we were doing it anyways, so why not?
Sarcasm.
Yes. Takeshita over Kenny Omega one-on-one. I had brought up 2 weeks ago, do you have Takeshita win at both All In and All Out? And they did it. And you and I both didn't predict it. So we didn't think they'd do it, but they did. The Bullet Club Gold, Jay White, Juice Robinson, Austin Gunn, and Colton Gunn over FTR and the Young Bucks. And then the international title match, Orange Cassidy's amazing title reign comes to an end at the hands of Jon Moxley, which I predicted after they'd announced it. I picked Mox, and you did too. Originally, I thought they would use Cassidy losing it to someone to make them kind of thing. We had talked about Daniel Garcia, Wheeler Yuta, or somebody like that. And I think they did miss an opportunity there. However, also telling the story of Cassidy was so beat down that when he ran into what is I think you have to say outside of MJF, Mox is probably the next top guy in AEW. He'd run through this whole reign and then he just couldn't get past the insurmountable mountain. I kind of think Cassidy might be the one eventually to beat Mox and take that title back. I could be wrong. But for me, selfishly, because I own Jon Moxley in our fantasy wrestling league, there we go with another fantasy wrestling league. It looks like he's going to be defending it about as often as Cassidy did. And I'm signing up for that. Give him like a 6-month reign. Let's go to the end of the year with this thing.
Did I hear you omit the strap match outcome?
I think did I score it? Did I score last week, Tom? I did.
You did.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, between the TBS title and the Claudio match. Sorry, Bryan Danielson over Ricky Starks in a no DQ strap match. Is there a strap match that has DQs? I'm just curious. Is that something that's a thing? I've never seen one.
Continuity.
Every time they'd say a no disqualification strap match, I'm like, well, duh.
Well, and the angle that led to that match that kicked off Collision on the night before was pretty sweet. And I actually felt like I didn't know that it was possible, and I didn't know it was going to be CM Punk in the spot until he got fired. But when it was Starks challenges the Dragon, when I saw that on Dynamite, I was like, okay, that makes sense. What will happen with Ricky Steamboat? And then Saturday, the light bulb goes off. I go, Bryan Danielson makes a lot of sense here. And then sure enough, his music hits and he comes out, and that was great. So, and then from all accounts, I believe that was the match of the night from what I read online.
It sounds like Takeshita Omega was also phenomenal. Again, sounds like a really strong show, but yeah, I've heard that and Starks passed out. He did not tap out. So they kept Starks strong, which I like. They booked him really well lately. I loved on Collision because some stories had come out before All In that originally there was a plan for Nigel McGuinness versus Bryan Danielson at All In, which for old school Ring of Honor fanboys like you and I would have been, if we would have gotten an All In that had CM Punk versus Samoa Joe and Nigel McGuinness versus Bryan Danielson, here's my $50. You had to put nothing else on the show. I would have just paid it to see that. Unfortunately, Bryan wasn't cleared yet, apparently. But then I love that when he comes out 6 days later, and Nigel had made comment about, brittle Bryan and that sort of thing. Clearly they're trying to lay the seeds that maybe they could still do this in the future. Maybe they can do it All In next year if things work out. I loved when Bryan came out and Nigel goes, oh, he can come out a week later. Sure. And I was like, I like that little just, subtle stuff. Nigel's so good. So I love that. I knew they had to do something because Ricky Steamboat isn't going to be in a strap match at 70 years old. Like, I just didn't see that being a thing. Although, because as you well know and our listeners well know, I am a huge Ricky Steamboat fan. Had they actually booked that match, they'd have gotten my $50 because I've seen Steamboat's last match when he did the thing with Big Time Wrestling. If he has another one and I'm able to see it, I'm probably going to lay out the money to see it. So could have made 50 more bucks, Tony, but no, please don't do that. I don't need Ricky Steamboat in a strap match at 70 years old. Yeah, the dragon set up the, you didn't say which dragon, the kind of, thing was pretty cool. In some ways, I wish I would have watched this show, but just sometimes can't see everything, right? And it sounds like this was a good one. Let's pivot to Punk, just because it's already at the top of the hour here, and I want to make sure we have a little bit of time for this and a little bit of time for the NFL picks. Obviously, you guys all know the story by now. Punk was headed out to the ring. Perry was coming back. Jack Perry had made a comment during his match about real glass. There was a previous issue between Perry and Punk where Perry wanted to use real glass for an event, for a stunt or a angle. And Punk said, we don't do that on Saturday. If you want to do that, go back to Wednesday, allegedly, as the story goes. And there was some sort of a physical altercation, which apparently, there's a million stories out there, but apparently extended beyond just Punk and Perry, because Tony Khan in his statement made the comment about it was the first time he felt like he was in danger and even his life was in danger, which felt a little melodramatic to me, but I guess I wasn't standing there. So Punk and Perry, Punk has another physical altercation. There's reports that he had some sort of an altercation with Ryan Nemeth in the past and asked him if he wanted to step outside. Of course, there's Brawl Out from a year ago, and now this. And a week later, as you said, CM Punk gets terminated with cause, which is very important language in that, from AEW. It felt your one-word comment when the press release was put up in the group that we're both affiliated with a lot of friends that we've made over the years. Your one-word comment, Tom, was inevitable. And I guess I'd like to give you just a chance to expand on that a little. And I thought it was a perfect comment, to be honest. But
yeah, I mean, it's just really disappointing. I don't know enough to know enough. I just have my perceptions and my opinions. But it seemed like even with Punk coming back in June, things never were fully resolved with what happened last September, a year ago September. And so because you have an organization where you can't keep people separate, and you also should expect people to act like adults and rational humans, and clearly that isn't the case. Tony Khan got put in a spot, and as much of a financial boon that CM Punk was and could be and could have been for AEW, you didn't create the promotion for him. Not that you should stick with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Not that they're the issue here, but I know that they're part of this story. You can't let someone who thinks that they have different rules live in that space. And I think that finally caught up to CM Punk. It's disappointing. It's disappointing. He feels that is the narrative. Not even the narrative. That's the persona. That's the life he wants to lead. Again, he's never wavered from his convictions. This now has proven to be, him acting in that way means you're no longer employed.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, I want to be careful how I say this. I've seen some who say, he'd been treated so poorly and this had happened and that had happened and this happened. But you can't just go around wanting to fight everybody. Like, you just don't. You're at work. I'm sorry, even though you're pro wrestlers, you're at work. And here's my other thing. Like, to get, and I understand it was a culmination of things, I'm sure. But to get that upset over Perry saying real glass, cry me a river, because you don't say that, I saw Bully Ray said, Jack Perry's a arrogant little young boy who doesn't understand that you don't say that on camera. I'm sorry. CM Punk has taken plenty of shots at other people on camera in his promos. And if you're going to dish it out, you need to be able to take it too. And so to get that upset when you've done that, he cut a promo after Collision a few weeks back, a month ago, about how Hangman Page was a peg warmer and couldn't sell merch and all of that. And Hangman Page and him aren't in a program. So it wasn't in character. It wasn't, you weren't building to anything. Maybe he thought he wanted to build to something, but you know there's tension there, and he went ahead and did that. Now there's stories, he apologized, fine, whatever. But like, if you're going to do that, you can't get all butthurt because Jack Perry said, real glass, cry me a river. Like, grow up. I'm sorry. Second side to that, though. Since CM Punk has been fired, Cash Wheeler came out on Collision and did the arm cross thing that evening. And then after Collision went off the air, I think it was Collision, or it might have been All Out, the Young Bucks came out. Matt Jackson did the victory lap thing that Punk used to do with the arms up in the air. And then on BTE, Kenny Omega drinks a bottle of dark liquid with a blue label on it. Clearly looks like Pepsi. Brandon Cutler has since said, oh, it was water with electrolytes. Shut up. You know what you were doing. And said, oh, that stuff tastes terrible. It tastes like lighter fluid. Tony Khan needs to sit everybody down in that company. And this is where we've talked about this before. I think we talked about it a year ago. Tony Khan may need to grow a backbone. I don't know. I don't mean to insinuate he doesn't have one, but it kind of feels that way a little bit. Or he needs to get somebody in a role and sit everybody down and say, here's the deal. Punk's gone. You're done. Referencing CM Punk. Good or bad. Cash Wheeler, don't be doing this. Young Bucks, Omega, done. Don't do the GTS. Don't make little Pepsi jokes. Don't, just we're done. We're moving forward. We're working with the guys who are here. And it's done. And if you have a problem with that, there's a door and you can go. Like, I just think it needs to be, because it's silly now. It's just gotten ridiculous at this point.
The weird part for me in this is, so Tony Khan seems to want to run a business and be everybody's friend. Yep. You can't do both, right? Yep. Like so you and I both have people that we report to. They are our bosses. Maybe we have one, maybe we have multiple. We might like them as humans, but we also are very mindful to draw a line and probably not be too cordial, too friendly, too outward with certain things. There's times and spaces for some blurring of the lines. But at the end of the day, like, your work, your productivity, your work ethic, they're all at the mercy of that person's perception, true or untrue, right? So if that's the case with all of the professional wrestlers, like, Tony Khan can't be at their mercy. He needs to go, I'm the boss. This is the way we do things, as you outlined, or this isn't the place for you. And he needs to understand, like, he can be successful without certain people. I think we're going to really be able to see that now, if that truly is the case. And I believe it will be, with now this era of CM Punk finally coming to an end.
Yeah. So I hope they all move forward. I do agree with, I think, Mark Henry's comment, which is interesting because Mark Henry works for AEW. I believe he still works there. I guess I haven't watched Rampage in so long. I don't know if he's still doing the now it's time for the main event thing.
He is.
Okay. He made a comment on Busted Open, like, okay, now the perceived problem is gone, so everybody should be good, right? We should all be able to move forward. Like, stop the pettiness, because everybody said CM Punk was a problem, or so many people, maybe not everybody. So now start acting like there's not a problem then. Don't keep acting like there's a problem, because then it wasn't all CM Punk. And I don't think it was all CM Punk. I think CM Punk needs to learn how to handle certain things better. But I think there's blame to go around in this. And I think a lot of it, as you just laid out, lies on Tony Khan. This should have been squelched a year ago. And this kind of stuff, I realize the Jack Perry thing isn't directly from that event, but like, this isn't how we act at work. We're at work. So we act like adults, and you don't have to be best friends with everybody at work. You have people at work, I'm sure, that you work with, Tom, who aren't superiors. I agree with you. You gotta, ultimately, I get along really well with my boss. We are able to sit and chat about personal things, but ultimately when the rubber hits the road, I also know, like, if she says something, like, that's what we're doing. Like, she's the boss. And I can agree with it or disagree with it. Doesn't matter. If she's made a decision, that's the way we're going. And I can either go with it or I can choose to go. A year ago or so, I made a decision at a job I was at that it was time for me to go because I wasn't agreeing with things anymore. that's fine. You can do that. But outside of that supervisor role, you have colleagues at work, and I'm sure you have some colleagues that you get along with really well, and maybe you even are friends with. But you probably also have some colleagues who you work with. Yeah, but you probably wouldn't go share a beer with them. You probably wouldn't, be inviting each other over your house because you just are different people, and that's okay. But you're also not saying you want to step outside, to those coworkers either.
Yeah.
So, I gotta stop.
Yeah, I might think they suck, but I won't tell them they suck, and that's where that's where we draw the line.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I had a banner on here to talk about AEW Post Punk. I think let's table that, and we'll come back to that when we're back. We haven't even talked about schedules. So whenever we record next week, maybe it'll be next week, maybe it'll be a couple of weeks.
I think we're good for the next couple of weeks. Don't listeners, supporters of this podcast, please don't hold us to that. But that's the goal.
That's the goal. Well, let's talk NFL because we are running up against towards the end of time. It is, to me, the most wonderful time of the year. I know I said that a couple of weeks ago. It is football season. It kicked off last night. And I'll just throw it out there and then let you talk for a second, Tom. It started last night with the Detroit Lions defeating the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs 21-20 in Kansas City. Right now, your team is the best team in football as of this morning, Tom.
So I believe this marks the third consecutive year where the reigning Super Bowl champion loses on opening night. I think there was a comment I heard last night where last year for sure it was the Bills defeated the Rams, and then the year prior, somebody beat the Chiefs, and I'm forgetting who, so I apologize. But either way, last night was awesome. I had picked the Chiefs. I make NFL picks every week. It's just one of the fun things that I do. You can do it on Pigskins, pick them on ESPN.com. And I had picked the Chiefs. It's going to be hard. Arrowhead, Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs are always tough. I love my Lions, but it's going to be a tough road to hoe, right? Well, then this week, Chris Jones isn't back on the Chiefs D-line. Kelsey gets his knee hurt as he's ruled out late afternoon yesterday. I wanted to pick the Lions with my heart. I didn't want to pick the Lions with my head because I still believe that the Chiefs are dynamic, and they are dynamic. They proved it last night. I picked the Lions, and you can go. I can share with you. Not that you need to. There's nothing on the line here. It's my word, and my word should be enough. I picked the Lions, and I didn't pick the Lions because of the Kelsey injury, because Chris Jones not being there. When it got down to it, I go, I think this team has what it takes. As I said when we started the show, I'm not going to quote myself directly, but I had belief, I had support, and then I was able to have that be in reality. And my son and I watched the first half last night. He stayed up later than his normal bedtime. We watched the first half with friends, and then we raced home so I could watch the second half. He tried to convince me to let him stay up. He was able to see the Brian Ranch interception and return touchdown, which tied the game. And then I said, I'm sorry, but you have got to get to bed. I cannot have you be a monster on Friday morning. But then when he woke up and I told him, dude, Lions won 21-20, he goes, awesome. And then I was able to share, he's a Bengals fan, so I shared the amazing Joe Burrow contract extension, $55 million a year for the next 5 years, $219 million guaranteed. This happened over breakfast, and my wife goes, "That's just unethical." And I go, "Honey, you don't understand the business of the NFL." But she's in a new role. She's in a donor management, donor relations role, fundraising role. So thinking of $219 million and what that could do in her world versus the NFL. Again, we're not talking apples to apples, and we're way off track. But thank you for giving me the chance to celebrate the Lions. I am incredibly excited about the season. Last night was the beginning, and I hope more than just the beginning, the continuation of what has been a tremendous turnover in that organization with Brad Holmes as the general manager, Dan Campbell as the head coach, and the amazing team building and structuring of putting the right people in the right places to build a successful franchise, which I hope is that elevation continues to happen, not just this year, not just next week, in years to come. As a lifelong Lions fan, there was a few years ago where I was like, I'm ready to be done. I'm ready just to join a different team and hitch my wagon to a different organization. And I like other teams in the NFL, don't get me wrong, but I love the Detroit Lions much like you love the Chicago Bears. So I know we're going to run really long today, and we're going to be quick with our NFL picks. So I apologize for pontificating in that way. I'll segue us. I went, and listeners to this podcast will recall from last year, I found the same exact website where you can walk through and you can pick week by week every single game, every single matchup for the entire season. I did that on Wednesday afternoon. So I did that before last night. I did that before this morning. So what you're going to hear from me in my NFL picks is what I thought the season would look like, thinking that every team would be their best selves, stay healthy. And again, we know in the NFL, you never know. So let's dive in, right? You made your picks. I made my picks. Let's go AFC first, if you're okay with that.
I like that.
And I'm going to go just division winners wild card, and then we'll go NFC division winners wild card. Then we'll do playoffs, and then we'll race to the end here. You good with that?
Good with that.
Cool. All right. So AFC East, I have the New York Jets being the winner of that division. AFC North, I have the Baltimore Ravens winning that division. AFC South, the Jacksonville Jaguars. AFC West, Kansas City Chiefs. My wild cards would be Cincinnati at the 5th, Buffalo at the 6th, and Denver at the 7th.
All right. We're close on some of them, but different a little bit. I have the Bills winning the AFC East. So there's a little bit of a difference there. I have the Ravens winning the North, which I think you said as well. Kansas City winning the West, and Jacksonville winning the South. The South is just going to be bad outside of Jacksonville. So, and the wild cards, I have the Bengals, I have the Chargers, and I have the Jets.
So overall, just one difference.
Yep, yeah. Just the one difference there. I did not want to put the Jets in the playoffs, but I just couldn't find a way to get them out. So
I'm probably influenced by all of the wrong reasons by Hard Knocks, and I will own that. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens, right? So just to be clear, I have KC as the 1 seed and the Jets as the 2 coming out of the AFC as the playoffs start. But we'll talk about playoffs in a moment. NFC, I have Philly winning the NFC East. I have Detroit winning the NFC North. I have San Francisco winning the NFC West, and New Orleans winning the NFC South. My wild cards are Dallas at the 5, Seattle at the 6, and Chicago at the 7.
Well, I hope you're right. That would be fun. I did not put my Bears in the playoffs. I think they will be in contention, but I thought maybe they might slide, maybe just a game short. Division winners, I believe I went completely chalk, the same with you, or with your picks. Philly in the East, Detroit in the North, San Francisco in the West, and New Orleans in the South. I have Seattle, and I don't have these ranked. I just picked my wild. I have Seattle in the playoffs. I have Minnesota in the playoffs, and I have the Washington Commanders. Ooh, wow, almost did it. The Washington Commanders coming out of the East. I think Sam Howell is going to have a nice year. I just think there's going to be a new era of like a breath of now that Dan Snyder is out as the owner. And I do, however, think if the Commanders do not make the playoffs, that Ron Rivera is probably gone and Eric Bieniemy finally gets the head coach position that he's wanted for so long. I kind of think that's part of why he got brought in and given the assistant head coach title or associate head coach, whatever it is, so that if it doesn't work out with Rivera, or if Rivera has any health setbacks, because he has dealt with some health concerns in the past few years. And obviously, as a big Bears fan, I love Ron Rivera. I hope everything goes well for that man. But I do think Bieniemy being brought in was a little bit of an insurance policy, and he would quickly ascend if anything changed there. But I have them going to the playoffs. And now if they get to the playoffs, maybe Rivera retires and Bieniemy takes over anyways next year. Who knows? But that's another storyline for another day.
And I have Philly as the 1 and Detroit as the 2 coming out of the NFC. And the reason why I'm able to have those seeds is because, again, I did pick the records, right? So in that space, I will also, full disclosure, I have the Arizona Cardinals being 0-17. So, when you're not looking at how the records are stacking up as you're going, you might go, there's no way that team's going to go 0-17. Maybe they will. Who knows? I don't know what's going on in Arizona.
It's happened. I mean, nobody's been 0-17, I guess, but it has happened twice that we've had 0 for teams
Yes.
Including your beloved Lions once.
Which makes I'm not even going to call this a rebound, but makes this time and space I'm in all the more rewarding. All right, so AFC playoff picks. I have the Jets over Denver. I have Buffalo over Jacksonville, and I have Cincinnati over Baltimore. Two of those would be upsets. So Buffalo would be the 6 over the 3, and then Cincinnati would be the 5 over the 4 in Baltimore. Then that would be the wild card round. So then the divisional round, I would have Buffalo over Kansas City, another upset. And then I would have the Jets over Cincinnati, giving us an AFC title game of the Jets and Buffalo. I love Buffalo. I picked Buffalo last year. They're going to have to show me something this year to really get to this, and this may be the last year, perhaps, even though I think they've got tremendous talent, tremendous coaching. We'll have to see. I do have the Jets over Buffalo to come out of the AFC.
God, I hope you're wrong.
Again, maybe I'm totally biased by Hard Knocks. But there was a stat I heard, interestingly, after these picks that maybe affirmed me even more. I think it was Dan Orlovsky. Dan Orlovsky said Aaron Rodgers, as part of Green Bay, on what would be considered last year a down year, they averaged 24 points a game. Had they had that production in the Jets last year, the Jets would have been like one of the best teams in the AFC. So if you think that Aaron Rodgers transfers that capacity to the Jets with the talent around him and what they think will be a great defense, the Jets would be likely falling way short of expectations by not making the playoffs and not going on a run. So there's that. Go ahead and do your AFC for me.
You know what? I don't have them broken out into games for the playoffs, so I just have the title game. I have Kansas City over the Bills. It's hard for me to pick against the Chiefs, even after last night. I think Mahomes is going to get it figured out. I think the receivers are going to start catching the ball a little better. There were a lot of drops last night from what I've read. I didn't see the game.
There are some great Kadarius Toney memes that you just need to find. They're just amazing.
I'll do some looking today. It's going to be death by 1,000 cuts from Kansas City because they have Travis Kelce and then like you and me at wide receiver. Like they don't have studs. Or at least they have young guys who maybe could become that, but they don't have established, Amon-Ra St. Brown's, Cooper Kupp's, granted with the injury, even DJ Moore in Chicago. I mean, established, really top-of-the-line receivers. They don't have those. They do have Travis Kelce, and as long as Kelce only misses a week or two, I think they're going to be just fine. But and they'll figure it out at wide receiver. It's a good run organization. They'll figure it out, or they'll make a trade and get somebody if they have to. I mean, that place will figure it out. So I have Kansas City over Buffalo.
Cool. NFC, I have Detroit over Chicago, Seattle over San Francisco, which would be an upset, and then Dallas over New Orleans, which would also be an upset based on seeding. Then I have Philly over Seattle, and I have Detroit over Dallas, rehashing images of 1992, if I'm not mistaken, at the Silverdome, but this would be at Ford Field. But then I have Philly over Detroit in the NFC title game because Detroit would have to go on the road and play in January in Philly. So then my Super Bowl would be Philly versus the Jets. And I'll let you do your NFC before we talk Super Bowl.
Yeah, I again just have the NFC title game. I have San Francisco over Philly. So interestingly, I have a San Francisco Kansas City Super Bowl. You have a Jets Philly Super Bowl. So we don't have a single team in the Super Bowl the same, which is kind of fun. What say you from there?
Yeah, so I think Philly over the Jets would be my pick as of today. I didn't pick, or maybe I did pick. I'm looking at my chicken scratch. I did pick Philly over the Jets.
So here's the thing: it's hard to pick against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, right? I mean, it's been done, but it's hard. There's something about Kyle Shanahan and knowing how to do things like. I think Brock Purdy becomes the first Mr. Irrelevant to ever win the Super Bowl, or I think he would be the first Mr. Irrelevant ever. Maybe there's been one who's been like a third string on a Super Bowl winning team, but I don't think there's been one who's actually started and won. I have San Francisco, and maybe it's a little homerish because my brother was a 49ers fan. So I admit that I have leaned a little more into San Francisco as kind of a 2 or 3 as far as my rooting interests go. Certainly they'll never overtake Chicago, but it's funny. I do that for my brother, and I love my mother and miss her dearly. I've lost her about a year ago now, And because she was a Packers fan and I'm a Bears fan, can't do that at all for Green Bay. I hope Green Bay goes over this year. I don't have them. I wouldn't predict them to go over. I am a little worried about Sunday. We'll see. Bears and Packers play. I have, however, made a bet at work. And if the Bears lose, I will have to procure a Packers t-shirt and wear it one Friday. So perhaps we'll be recording that Friday and you might see it. But I am feeling good that I am going to be watching my friend at work wear a Bears shirt to work.
Bears are my pick to win. Bears are my pick to win this Sunday. So
yeah, I just think they're going to be much better. And I think without going too far, because I know we got to wrap up here because I got to get to work. But I think the Bears, to just give me my quick second with them, are going to be much improved. They have 2 number 1 picks next year, plus a whole lot of cap room, which if Justin Fields takes the steps he hopefully will take, and I think he will, a chunk of that is going to get eaten up in an extension for him, which should, and Joe Burrow just reset the market on that one. So, Justin Fields is like, let's go. If he plays the way he can, that man's, he's already made plenty of money. Don't get me wrong. And I understand what your wife says. And yes, when you just stop and look at the dollars, it is absurd. But it is the business, right? It's what it is. And if the Bengals wanted to keep Joe Burrow, they were going to have to pay him that much, because if they let him go anywhere else, somebody else would have paid him that much, or more perhaps. So, yeah, I'm excited about the Bears. I did drop the $250 on the NFL Sunday ticket because I have YouTube TV. So here's the bad part, and Tom, I should tell you this so that you don't accidentally do anything. Sunday, the Bears play at 3:30. I have a trivia booking at 5, about an hour away. So I leave at 3:45 for that. So I will not see the game live. I am recording it. YouTube records everything that you put in your library. So I will probably about 7:30 or 8 o'clock get a chance to hit play on that. I'm going to stay off social media. I'm not going to read anybody who texts me or Facebook messages me. And I'm going to try to get the people at trivia who know I'm a Bears fan to keep their mouths shut and not spoil it, because I want to be able to just sit and enjoy. I love football. I love Bear Packer games. It's sentimental for me because of my mom. All of those things. I've told my friend who I have this bet with, like, you can't text me during the game. We can talk about it Monday morning when I get to work. Like, one of us will have bragging rights. But please don't text me during the game. Her first comment was, "Oh, I'm so going to do it." And then I explained the whole thing with my mom, and she's like, "You seriously pulled your mom out on this one?" I was like, "But it's true. It just is the thing, right? Like, I didn't do it to, exploit my mother's passing. I did it because it's true, and it does mean a lot to me on Sunday." So yeah, I'm excited about the season. Let's go. Let's go. It's ready. And Tom, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to whoop you in Greg's league. You're probably going to whoop me in G20 because, hey, I couldn't even draft my team correctly in that league. So that's a different, we can talk about our fantasy leagues as we continue on. But
we don't play this weekend in Greg's league, though, so it's okay.
So it's okay. Right. Yeah, I didn't mean that this week. I just meant in general.
Well, bring it. Please bring it.
I will be dominating with Cooper Kupp maybe someday, hopefully. Oh, my goodness. Could that man get healthy? I couldn't let him go at the end of the second round, though. Y'all let him go that far. I had to grab him there. Hopefully he's just out a few weeks. And I have, Christian McCaffrey and Cooper Kupp to start my team. I mean, hey, if he's healthy, I like that. So if both of them are healthy, there's a little bit of health concerns with both of those gentlemen most years. So anyways, that's the NFL, pro wrestling. Everybody have fun this weekend. No pay-per-views, I don't think, this weekend of any note. Probably a GCW show because they run about every weekend. But everybody have fun. Tom, we're back next Friday, we think.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
So we'll be able to talk about my Bears and how we feel going into week 2 for both of us. Obviously, you're feeling pretty good. Who do the Lions have next week? Do you know off top of your head?
Seattle, home opener. They're also unveiling a Barry Sanders statue at Ford Field. So there's a lot of good stuff. For the first time in the history of Ford Field, the Lions have a season ticket waiting list.
Nice. That's very cool for them. Very cool for them. So, well, as a part owner of the Green Bay Packers, may they go 0-17. And not just for the draft pick, because I just want them to lose. Everybody have a great weekend. Tom, it's been great as always. And we will connect with you all next week right back here on Two Spot Monkeys Live.